Okay. Good morning.
Hi. Hello.
I always put my cup up like this, like cheers, good morning, hello everybody. And then you're like, oh, okay, we're going to do this now?
Well, we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to just do this.
Go check it out.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You are gonna sing this morning.
Well, the heart wants what it wants.
I'm just saying.
And the voice wants what the voice wants.
You mean that TV show on NBC? The Voice?
Got it.
Is that what it is?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I actually have recurring nightmares that I'm, without my own consent, forced to perform on American Idol or some sort of singing competition.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be rough.
And I don't know the words.
Yeah.
But I just have to walk out on national television and sing.
That would be so frightening. Even knowing the words, it would be a nerve-wracking thing. But if you didn't know the words...
I know the words to like 4 songs.
And every time she sings them, it surprises the heck out of me. Because I think she knows the words to 0 songs.
That would be a more accurate representation. I look just like my granny today with my little curls and such. What are you going to do?
I don't know. What are you going to do? How are you doing today? Hello, everybody. Welcome
see
to the
you.
We're Better When We Come Together
Morning show.
with Dr. Terry Murphy.
Chris Murphy.
Hello.
Should I call you Mr. Chris Murphy?
Nah, I don't want to be Mr. Chris.
Mix Chris.
Mr. Chris.
Yeah.
Nah. Oh, wow. Nandita's on top of it. Bow. Already throwing out that 7 plus.
I love it.
Ooh, that's good. Now, I know that you've been around for a while.
You just yelled that directly into my tiny baby ear.
I'm sorry.
Aw, I'm sorry about your dog. I hope your dog is feeling better soon. Your dog had surgery.
Yeah. Thinking about you with that. I was just going to ask Nandita, talking about our set points, what do you think is your, where do you start
That's a great
from?
question.
If you're a 7
your
plus
baseline?
now, what is your baseline? Yeah.
Mine is really
morning,
like a
morning.
5. Yes, that's so good. My
Love
baseline
it.
is probably a 5, and 5 feels neutral. It doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel good. You too, Nandita.
Okay, so right in the middle,
7 plus
1 to
probably
10.
feels like higher energy, maybe even positive in some of that, which, the numbers are not necessarily good or bad, but I do feel differently at higher numbers than I do at lower numbers.
Now, we've talked about this. I love that we're just diving in. My set point would probably be at a 7. That's kind of where I just feel like that I start the day off.
That's your neutral. That's
Yeah.
where you feel calm and
Right,
good and
right.
it's not bad, it's not superior
Right.
or exceptional.
But I would say that I'm at a 5 today. So your set point or your baseline is a 5, and now you're at a 7. Mine is at a 7, and I feel today like a 5. Interesting.
Oh, so you're a bit low energy.
Bit low energy.
Yeah.
I woke up, had a great night's sleep, had great nutrition yesterday, but this morning I just feel a little groggy.
Y'all, I did something yesterday that I just want to share with you. You already know what it is.
I do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear again.
At 2:48 p.m. yesterday, I put my phone down after I got off a phone call with a friend, and I never even flipped it over again until this morning. Totally away from my...
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, phone. I didn't have to see clients or work or any of that. It was just a thing where in the morning I spent time filling my tank back up and getting a couple things that I needed to do to prep for the week, so that then I just felt like I could really rest. And it was so wonderful.
That's cool.
If you have the privilege to be able to do that, highly, highly recommend. And if you don't, finding even a little pocket of time where you don't have to do anything, you're not responsible for anything, you don't have to respond, where you just get to be, can be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I will echo that. I was actually really surprised. Last night we were about to fall asleep, and she was like, oh, I probably need my phone. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, can you get it from the other room? And that's just not a sentence that we say because our phones are pretty much always on us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, your phone was in another room for 8 hours.
My brain
which is
was
bizarre.
dancing and doing some amazing
Yeah.
moves and stuff. Just happy to do that. I think I was telling Chris, I think I'm probably going to take a solid week-long break at some point. I've got to figure out schedule-wise what it looks like, but I'm just going to take a week off everything. Work, socials, everything. Just a nurturing, refilling the tanks kind of space. This week would be such a good week to do it too because it's a new moon. So it sounds like if you didn't grow up open in a lot of ways, which I didn't, there was one way and it was like Southern Baptist Evangelical Christian. So like talking about the new moon, like even acknowledging kind of the moon would have been like, probably I'm a witch and I'm going to be burnt. I'm going to get struck by some kind of lightning. But we are electromagnetic as human beings, and so is the earth. And so if you're feeling a bit out of sorts, you can go and put your bare feet to the earth or in a river, some sort of natural source of water. You can put your hands down like in a pond or a lake or a river or a stream or the rain, something like that. And it will actually really help you physiologically, help you to settle. We've lost a lot of touch, like our direct connection to the earth. And it doesn't do good things for us. I actually think that our nervous system doesn't work as well when we're not literally grounded, like an electric wire is grounded in the earth so that like lightning doesn't blow your house up or what have you. We're really the same. And when we have like rubber-soled shoes, my friend Taylor Nick and I were talking about this recently. We wear rubber-soled shoes because they don't conduct any electricity, but then you are walking on the earth, but you're not actually having any contact with it. It's kind of like Zoom all day. That's not actually physical proximity to another human being, so you can't co-regulate as easily because even if you've got your mirror neurons going, you don't have the physical chemical charge, that electric charge between the two of you. So this is where like my chemistry background and my mental health place are connecting to each other. So just FYI, if you are curious about something that you could do immediately that doesn't cost you any money, but put your feet in the earth as soon as you can in a safe way.
I did this yesterday. I had such a good time. Usually when I take my dog on a morning walk, we just are walking beside a field. We've got a nice walking path, and the dog usually is in and out of the field, and I'm just walking on the path. But yesterday, it was just like covered in dew. It looked nice and cool. So I just took my shoes off and just walked through the field, and it was so nice. I got back and my feet were all dirty and nasty, and I had to go dry them off. But the experience was great. Yes, absolutely. The experience was amazing.
Zac Efron's new show, what's it called? It's like a documentary.
Down to Earth.
Down to Earth.
On Netflix.
So like they talk about that too, bare feet on the grass. Isn't that so great? Where you can actually help with jet lag when you're changing time zones. Like we do it too fast the way that we travel now, and so then your body gets a bit dysregulated with your circadian rhythms and everything, but you can put your feet in the ground and that will actually help recalibrate you to the current time zone that you're in. Isn't that so neat? Like we have everything we need, really. We just like have effed it up in a lot of ways, I think.
Because I've been so out of touch, I'm still skeptical when I hear it.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense.
Like hearing you say that, I'm like, I hope that's true. And then it was just me 1 minute ago telling how enjoyable it was for me to walk through the morning grass with the dew on it, and how
but think about it.
I had a point where I'm like, yes, and then you start talking about it, and I'm like, I hope that's true. It's like, why does my mind take so long to?
I'm gonna shout out Caitlin again. Go get her book Native, because she talks about this. Like, how can you be like Christian and still connect to your roots and your identity? Like, we came up out of this earth. So like, if you even want to be super literal about the Bible and that sort of thing, like we came out of the earth. So of course, when we put our feet back to it, we're getting back to source. Like we're the same stuff. We're the same chemical makeup as the stars and the moon and the sun and the earth. Like chemically speaking, we're the same.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of artificial things around us that block us. That we're social creatures and we're in quarantine. So you're not actually getting that sort of resourcing that you would be getting, even sometimes standing in a small group of people, or if you're an extrovert, just a giant group of yelling and smelly things and like loud noises and people looking at you. But we don't get that rhythm and that resonance and that co-regulation together. So that can be really difficult for us. Like as human beings, we want to respect and pay attention to our wiring and just notice where you feel most free, open, pleased, joyful, and alive. What are those moments? I very much doubt it's in a cubicle with like fluorescent light coming into your eyeballs. Like, I don't know that I've ever heard any of my clients in 10 years talk about that being their happy place. Where is it usually? Outdoors, the beach, the woods, a lake, a cozy home that has like sensory elements that are pleasing, or eating a meal that you really love. Like, even the food is out of the earth. The closer to the earth it is, the better that our bodies process it. Like, it doesn't have to be woo-woo, you know, or scary for us to talk about health in this way. Like, it's really just the most simple, most fundamental way that we can nurture and care for ourselves too.
Dude, I love this.
Yeah.
This is like bringing my number up. Just hearing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's because we're right here.
That's true. That's true.
That's really good.
That's true.
That's really, really great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so yes, anthropologically, we're meant to live in communities of no more than 150 people, like maximum. That, you know, 100 years ago, maybe even a little bit before then, 150, you only in your lifetime really hung out with about 150 folks. That's about it. And what ends up happening when we now have a worldwide millions of people, I have more followers than that, you know, that I've got more friends on Facebook than that number, is we get stretched a little thin. You can't actually maintain that level of connection with that many people. But right now we're even cut off from that smaller number, right? So something's missing, and your nervous system is going to be like trying to figure out like, wait, what's going on? This isn't making sense. And so one of the ways that we can care for ourselves really well, be with your safe people that you're socially distanced with, that sort of thing. Put your feet in the ground, or your hands, or, you know, if you have a disability and it's hard for you to get outside, is there someone who can take you? Is there a way that you can do that? You know, can you hold leaves in your hands, you know, or have something brought up near your face that can really help you, you know, to be able to do that the way that you can. How is our garden? Bananas.
Bananas.
It's
We're not
mainly weeds.
growing bananas, but it's
wild,
everywhere.
kind of like my soul. It is
We made you a
unkempt.
soul garden.
The tomatoes are phenomenal, though. I have to say that I can eat them like candy
Yeah.
right off the vine.
And the
I grew
pumpkins
up on
are
like
coming along as well.
pumpkins are amazing. We need to go check those out today.
Yeah,
That would be
it's
so
good,
fun.
Good call.
And a cactus, that's really sweet. Yeah, so like having plants inside your house too can be such a nourishing thing. Plus it helps your oxygen, and it cleans any carcinogens and junk out of your house. Plants are electromagnetic as well.
We've tried our best to.
Why am I whispering? I don't know.
We've tried our best to maintain not necessarily a minimalist aesthetic on purpose, but we've tried to not bring a lot into our house without thinking through it.
Yeah.
And so there are a few things that we want to do to the house to just, you know, in this quarantined time, we've thought about like, what do we really need? If this if we have to lock down again, if we have to like hunker down again, what do we need in our house? What did we learn the first wave back in like March and April, that now that we have been through that we can learn? And so we're adding in a few things that we really feel like not only nourish our soul, but are good for us. Like they add to the experience of living and not like take more effort away from us. But one of the things that we've tried to do is to add more green live plants into our house. Just, you know, to be
And
able
that we eat.
Yeah, to look up and to be able to see our fiddle leaf fig.
Did this
or
look like eating?
Yeah, it did. It looked like kind of Pac-Man eating. Yeah. But yeah, so we're trying to think through those things. Just to, again, a lot of times at the beginning of the show, we talk about self-care and taking care of ourselves. And that's just one of the things. It's not necessarily what we talking about this morning, but it is one of those things that we...
I went rogue.
Which is fine. And I want to say too, I want to go back a minute or 10 and acknowledge the people that have already put their numbers in. Thank you so much.
you.
Yeah, I see that.
Did I say mine?
I don't think so, but I saw somebody, I think it was Caitlin, she put a box is her energy.
She's moving, remember?
Oh, yes. Okay. I was thinking that like you wanted to close yourself off from the rest of the world, and that's why you were a box.
You're such an intuitive.
So
It's like a box is never a box. What does it mean? It's like it must mean something.
When we do,
But it
like,
might.
okay, so let's do a quick check-in. And for those of you that don't know, we every day, Monday through Friday, we do a check-in, 1 through 10. How you feeling? Just where are your emotions on a scale from 1 being low 10 being high. Where are they in between? And if you don't want to use numbers, throw an emoji in there like Caitlin so wonderfully did. And if that is not enough, then you can tell us more. And so I appreciate, I saw 7+, I saw a 4 because of some issues that are dealing with. Yep. And so I just wanted to embrace all of those. But for those of you, other folks that are watching, what's your number? So I'm going to change mine, even though I started out at a 5. I mentioned this about 10 minutes ago. Started out at a 5. I'm already up to a 6 today. Just talking with all of you, talking to you, it's already helped. And so I'm really appreciative of that.
That's amazing.
We've got an 8 over on Facebook. We've got another 7 on
Yeah.
Insta. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank
I'm
you for
like
sharing.
at a 6.4.
Well, okay, that's very specific.
Nervous system feels off, more like at a 3. Yes. Yeah. Well, and so
Thanks, Katie. 7.
if your
Another 7 from Brad. Awesome.
energy actually feels a bit lower than usual today, it is the week of the new moon. And remember, you are 70% water or something like that. How much water are we? Can't remember. 60%,
Different percentages in each
70%?
person, but our
Depends
average
on how much I
around-
drink. Yesterday I was
around-
like 90% water.
It averages around 60%.
60%. So you're mainly water, and the moon absolutely makes a difference, right? The moon makes a difference on your body because you have tides within you too, right? In your cells, in your body. And then the earth is very, very much responsive to where the moon and everything is. Again, talks about this in your Bible. If you feel
whisper again.
If you feel super nervous about talking about celestial bodies, you have to talk to God about that because I didn't make the moon. I'm just talking about science from this perspective and its impact on you as a human being. That lower energy can happen too at the new moon because we aren't getting the pull, the gravitational pull. So our energy isn't up like it is at a full moon. It's actually the lowest point. So a quietness in your body, a calmness. This is a great week to let things go. I will be talking about this with my clients. What do you need to let go of? What wants to be released for you? It is yin energy instead of yang energy, so it is grounding energy. It is feminine energy. P.S. No matter where you identify in the gender spectrum, feminine energy is inside all of us. Right? This is not about gender identity. This is just about energy. So feminine energy is more flowing and creative and flexible. It's calming and grounding. It's about like our connection to Mother Earth. So, this week would be just such a wonderful thing to even write things that you want to let go of, fold them up, send them down a stream, then go collect them because we don't litter. But you could write it on a leaf and let it go. You can do this. Yeah. Moon effect on energy is scientific. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
such a good question.
This just makes sense to me to hear that. Like, if the moon, the presence of the moon can cause the waves to go up and down, then, and we just assume that it doesn't have effect on other things as well because they're planted in the ground or gravity keeps our feet from flying off into the air. It just makes sense that there would be some effect, regardless of if we can see it or
look
not.
at the Farmer's Almanac. So all of my grandparents were farmers, and they were very intentional about when we plant and when we harvest, and they did that based on the sun and the moon, but the moon in particular. And so you plant at a certain time where the moon is in a certain place so that the seeds can germinate, can be pulled down into the earth in a different way. Right? So you plant,
So
at the new
interesting.
moon, and then you're going to harvest at the full moon. Like, it's just very different. Cutting plants can be so similar when you harvest your vegetables. Like, what used to feel like magic to us as a culture, we now just have science that has collected data to just support what our grandparents and great-great-grandparents and our ancestors knew on like a gut, spiritual, intuitive sort of level. And mental health is so similar to that. That a lot of the research that we do, like this happened to me in my PhD studies. I had this idea based on what I felt, my own story, working with other clients, places that they got stuck in their trauma. And so my research ended up being a gut guess. My hypothesis was a gut feeling that then I went and did like 4 years of research to see if it was actually true. And it was. The data just backed up though and just supported what we thought was true. Like, that's one way to do it. You can do research in a million different ways, but I just find it endlessly fascinating that it is really scientific, these things that people for generations and generations and generations were talking about.
You said you wanted to check on if it's the effect on the moon is scientific, and I would love, if you check on it, I would love to hear what you find, because I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm taking, just talking about myself, I've been so disconnected from a lot of nature my whole life, and so to think about some of these things, like the moon has an effect on you, it's like, come on. But going back to what we were talking about a second ago, if the moon can affect the water to rise and fall, like, why would we assume that we have zero effect because it's there? So I imagine that we'll find some interesting scientific data on top of the idea of it just being something that that we can talk about out loud without backing it up scientifically. So I'd love to hear what you say. I love that you're so scientific in your brain. And that's one of the things that I love about you, because I'm more ethereal or artistic, and so
you don't have a one line in your human design. We've talked a little bit about human design here, but I have a one line in my profile, which is deep, investigative, scientific. I want to take a deep dive down and go all the way into... Are you making fun of me?
Do a deep dive down. I like it.
I feel embarrassed now.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was appreciating
You're enjoying me?
Yes, absolutely.
So you weren't making fun of me? So I understand things better when I use my whole body.
Love it.
It's drama. It's drama. So anyway, I wasn't really meaning to necessarily talk about that, but I feel really passionate about that piece. And part of what made me think of it is wherever your baseline is, you might actually find yourself a bit lower during a new moon, because energetically you're going to be pulled down. Like sometimes it can actually even feel like there's more gravity. Have you ever had that feeling before, where you actually feel pulled downward, like you're heavier in your chair, you're laying down harder into your bed, and there's no real difference in anything other than just energetically it feels very different. Like just pay attention to those things. Get a little bit curious about what that's like. And then don't beat yourself up. We have this sort of idea, and I'll speak really to American culture in particular, because that's where we live and it's what I'm observing and what I feel, is if I'm not go, my energy is up and let's get it and let's go, let's be productive, we're gonna work hard, we're gonna do another thing and another thing and hustle. So on days that my energy is lower, I can actually feel some shame or feel guilt or feel less valuable as a human being if I have lower energy, or start to think there's something wrong with me. Instead of what I know to be true is I'm much more fluid like the ocean. The ocean is perfect. That is doing exactly what it was made to do. And look how dramatic it is. High waves and crashing, and it has tides every day, and there's crap in it. You know, and like it's frothy sometimes, and sometimes it's still, and it is unapologetic, and it doesn't really necessarily feel the need to explain itself to you and to say, hey, by the way, I've been having kind of a day. So you might notice some waves out there, like, shh, it just is, and it is glorious. How many of us want to run directly toward the ocean in all its beauty and authenticity? Me too. I thought you were going to high five me.
And that too.
Okay. So I am just embracing my oceanness.
I love that.
Right? That I'm much more the wave than I am the shore. And that is just the way that I was created to be, you know?
All right, news alert, I'm changing my number again. I'm at a 7 now.
This is amazing.
I feel more awake, more alive, more excited now, just based on us all talking.
Chris's number has gone up.
I wanted to say that just like Katie and Brad and Johanna there, that I'm with you. I'm 7ing it up. And I'm a little jealous of Brad because he had a spin class this morning.
Take us with you.
I miss spinning. But
I'm so
everybody,
happy for you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, everybody, for commenting.
And it's not because your energy necessarily got higher. What happened? Do you know?
I think getting in touch with all of you helped me to get in touch with myself a little bit.
Like some self-acceptance?
Yeah, exactly.
Made your number go up. It's not because you all of a sudden got all that extra energy.
Mm-hmm. And so this is
a perfect example of self-acceptance.
Yes. So this is one of those things.
That's awesome, Susan.
Whoa, close to a 10. That's
so
awesome. This is one of those things where it is important for me just, even if we didn't do this show on weekday mornings, it is important for me to continually check in with myself, because if I don't, I could have woken up this morning a little grumpy like I did and just assume that I'm going to have a crappy day and just move throughout my day thinking that, like, well, I guess this is the way that I woke up, so this is the way that I'll go to bed. But I'm feeling myself wake up to myself, wake up to the world, talk to everybody. And now, just in the 20 minutes that we've been live, or how long it's been, I have moved from a 5 to a 7. So I just want to say, everybody, that thank you for being here this morning. Thanks to adding to the conversation.
It's time for a dance party. Let's go! Yeah, we get 9 numbers up, yeah!
Don't make me an 8. Don't make me an 8. I'll feel too great if I'm an 8, so don't make me an 8.
Yeah!
I don't know why I'm denying it.
Because
you're right, it is.
Self-acceptance is the best gift you can give yourself. Like that you don't actually need to go and change anything out here, and you actually didn't try to change anything in here. It's when you just held space for yourself that it's okay exactly as you are, that actually boosted your mood a little bit.
And nobody else tried to change me also. Sometimes if somebody else tries to inject themselves into, like, oh, you feel bad? Let me make you feel
Cheer
better.
up, cheer
Then
up.
I feel an obligation
I will
to
get
not...
more mad.
Well, I feel an obligation in those moments not to actually change, but to look like I'm changing. And so sometimes I'm like, thank you so much for everything that you've done. And in my head, I'm like, I wish that you hadn't done that because I didn't ask for it, but you're doing it anyway. And that makes me actually a little bit more grumpy. So the fact that everybody just even unintentionally or subconsciously accepting me where I was, I had the freedom to move about my day in the way that I needed to. So thank you all. I really appreciate that.
And then I was just going to say, the last sort of piece that kind of like ties a bow around self-acceptance is gratitude. And you just shared that too, like, thank you. Like, I love to, when I go outside and put my feet in the ground, and feel the grass, the cool sort of temperature in the morning on my feet, to just like let my heart be open and to just say thank you. Like to share my gratitude back, that the earth is holding me in that moment, and then I do feel like I can go out in a different sort of way and engage, because I feel more whole and more grounded and more myself. It's like a true sort of humble place, where you're not like thinking you're a piece of garbage, which isn't humility anyway. Like that's shame. But like humility is like noticing how at once grounded and simple and of the earth that you really are, and also the magnitude of your greatness.
Yeah. Like
the moon. Like it's just so beautiful. Well, that was like, we went all in.
That was great. Yes. So we will talk briefly about our relationship talk this morning, but I just wanted to say too, today is day.
Grab some coffee. Do you
Sure.
need me?
No, I'm okay. Today is day 2 of us being in a different space. We're just in a different space in our house. We're trying different lighting setups. We're trying different camera angles and stuff. So I'm just checking in. How do you like this? Is it too echoey? Can you hear us okay? Do we still feel like we're bringing the same amount of energy? So we're trying a few new things, and we just wanted to hear from you as well. So I just wanted to ask that. Feel free to put that in there. And also, again, we want to...
Look how big your hand is compared to mine.
They can't see it, so you can't do that.
Here,
let's try it.
It makes me look like a child hand.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody, for...
Thank you so much for your feedback.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit...
Mahasanrita? I just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. So appreciate it.
So we're going to talk briefly about relationships. And this week we've been talking about not only our move that we make when we feel a bit dysregulated, but when we have those moves and we're in partnership or we're in a relationship with another person, specifically romantic partnerships, but not just that, because it works in every different relationship, that when we get discombobulated, dysregulated, we feel threatened in some way, or it doesn't feel comfortable anymore. We have these moves that we do. Some people withdraw themselves from the situation. Some people want to engage even more, so they pursue the other person in a relationship. And when that comes into conflict with what the other person in the relationship needs or wants or is asking for, then we have a cycle that is created where one person is doing something that kind of triggers the other person to do something, and that trigger has a response, and that response triggers the other person, and so then we go kind of in an infinity loop of now we're in a cycle where we're arguing. There's also a positive cycle that happens sometimes, but we're talking about the way in which we get into arguments, get into fights, get into disagreements. And so that's one of the things that we've been talking about this week is like in our negative cycle, when we get into an argument, what happens and what do we do as a result?
This is an Emerson quote from Sugar Boo and Company, which we really love. It's one of our favorites. We should just post it. All right. Can you see this? And does it look
I can see it on
like the
Instagram. I can see it on
proper
Facebook
font?
now.
Yeah.
Good. There we go.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there we go.
Does that P look backwards to you, or does it look right?
I think it's going to... Oh, did you draw it
I
backwards?
drew it backwards so that it would be reversed.
I was going to say it's backwards because we're on the screens, but you did a good job.
So pursue, withdraw is what we're talking about. This is the cycle we're talking about today. That pursue is moving in, and then withdraw is it's keeping on moving in the opposite direction.
That's correct. Yeah, good.
And then the reason we're looking at it in an infinity loop like this is because the nature of your cycle, the nature of your pattern is not this happens and then this happens. Okay? It's not a cause and effect. It is a mutually reinforced pattern that could start either with either of these people. So a withdrawer could withdraw first, and then this pursuer is going to be activated to come in. Or the pursuer can pursue, and then the withdrawer is going to move away. Or neither person ends up being the trigger, and the trigger comes from outside, from job loss, job stress, waking up in a grumpy mood, needing to dance and having no one to do it with, whatever it is. Like, it could be a million different reasons that you get triggered, but this pattern in particular is the most common relationship pattern, not just in romantic partnerships, but in all relationships. There is a natural sort of push and pull rhythm that happens in pursue withdraw relationships. The more that I go after you and want closeness and conversation, and that's just proximity, or if we're in conflict wanting to talk about things, the more that he's going to move away from me. So we have this pursue withdraw relationship. The more that I come in, the more he wants to go away. Right? And there's this sort of like, think of it like a bungee cord between the two of us, right? So like, if I then start to move away from him, he might actually be reactive and come in towards me. So pursue withdraw is so popular, it's so common that it has become what all like romantic comedies are based on. It's what you see in every sort of sitcom. It's the sort of heterosexual, monogamous couple example of how marriage sucks. Like why marriage is so bad. It's what they're really saying is there's a couple that is stuck in a pursue withdraw pattern and they can't get out of it. So let's make fun of them. Basically. So pursuers get this negative sort of stereotype of being nags, of always needing to be controlling, of bossing not just their kids, but also their partner around. And in this trope that we see in TV and film and that sort of thing, it's like a married couple, male, female, heterosexual. So we're talking about it in that sort of way. But just know that your cycle and your pattern can be same sex. It could be more than two people in a partnership. You can more than just a dyad. It can really show up in all kinds of ways. It could be between you and your boss. It could be between you and friends, siblings, you and your own kids. But we're going to talk about it kind of based on our own relationship, which mirrors what we see in pop culture. I just want you to know that this is way beyond a heterosexual married couple, right? I don't want that to be sort of the way that this manifests. This shows up because it's an attachment, which is a human thing. This is about your attachment. So pursue withdraw is tricky to get out of because it's also addictive in and of itself. It's an addictive pattern. So why do we enjoy certain things? Because the things that we enjoy release pressure. That's how we're wired as mammals, is we learn from the release of pressure. So I loved math growing up because what would happen is the pressure would be up. I would see a problem sitting in front of me. But in the process of solving and organizing everything, especially like algebra and calculus and that sort of thing. When you started to come to an answer, what would happen when you finally found the solution to that problem is this huge release of pressure, that you had found this answer, that something made sense, and there was closure. Boom. And then I would love to work another problem. It's the same way I feel about Sudoku. It's the same way I feel about like true crime shows. Is there's this increase of pressure initially, and then something happens. There's something that's solved or something that goes on, and then there's this release of pressure. So inside of us, when we've got conflict, if we're having a bad day, if there's even just some distance in a coupleship, whatever it is, we experience an increase in pressure in our nervous system. And that looks different depending on your attachment style growing up. If you're not sure what that is, last week we did a series all the way through of all 4 attachment strategies. So you can go watch that. Or I have a post on my Instagram called Let's Talk About Attachment. You can just scroll through that and see what resonates for you. So if I'm a pursuer, the release of pressure comes from me getting more information, solving things, think about my math, addressing things with the person that I'm in a relationship with, and then feeling closer proximity, a repair, something like that. And then the pressure's released and it's like, I feel so much better, which also reinforces that next time something goes down, I'm gonna bring it up, I'm gonna talk about it, I might even raise my voice a little bit, I'm gonna send a stronger signal, because that's gonna release the pressure. That's the way things get solved. And so your nervous system starts to depend on that pattern. It's predictable. Withdrawers, it looks a little bit different, right? The increase of pressure tells them to move away from the source of conflict, which they see as the relationship or their partner, actually, if it gets super entrenched, that the pursuer gets labeled as the problematic person. So let's look at our sitcom again. What's the trope around the husband in these romantic comedies?
He's just aloof. He doesn't want to engage. He is lazy, relationally lazy.
Doesn't know anything about emotions.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, I don't know, just letting things
like
happen
doofy.
to him. Yeah.
Would rather like grill out with his buddies than to have like a meaningful emotional conversation with partner, or is all about sex.
Yeah.
Sex is okay. And emotions are there, but where do we see emotions in these sort of sitcoms? Games, like sports events, like we talked about yesterday a little bit, crying over silly things, like a tool going missing or something. So that trope is actually grounded in reality. That pursue withdraw relationships are super popular, and we get super entrenched because we just consider that to be normal. Like, I guess this is just what marriage looks like. But that's not what relationships have to be like. It's actually super painful to get stuck in your cycle for a long time. When you're stuck here, it's infinite. There's no end. Do you see that? So how do you get out of it if the more that you go round and round and round, right, the more stuck that you find yourself? Because the release of pressure ends up coming from the cycle instead of coming from actually really just getting to be vulnerable. So the cycle happens when we're protecting ourselves. So instead of me being vulnerable and saying, I'm really afraid, when I can't reach you in an emotional way, or when I'm not sure about what's happening inside of you, I get really scared. And it starts to feel kind of unsafe in the relationship emotionally. And so what I start to do is I get a bit panicky inside, and I start to think, oh no, we're drifting, we're not as close as we need to be. And if that's true, he's gonna end up getting bored with me and leave me, right? He's gonna end up abandoning me. Because the truth is, underneath this pattern, under here, outside of the pattern, we have the same longings and the same fears, because we're human beings. Everyone longs for love, belonging, and understanding, acceptance, that sort of thing. And what we all fear is rejection and abandonment and a loss of a coherent sense of self, that I might go crazy. And I mean that in a mental health sense, right? So what's the other alternative? If you want to get out of the cycle, you first need to know what it is that you do. Do you pursue? Do you withdraw? And then can you, rather than pursuing or withdrawing, can you catch it when you start to do it and go, uh-oh, I'm scared actually on the inside. What do I need to do right now? Can I drop into my fear? Can I figure out what this is? What's the story I'm telling myself is usually for me the best sort of way to find what's going on deeper down. And then can I let my partner in? Now, it's going to be easier in some ways for pursuers sometimes, because pursuers have more comfort really in
More
talking
practice.
about emotion, more practice.
Yeah.
And so that muscle's just a bit more flexed. But withdrawers feel too. It just may look different when withdrawers are naming what's happening inside. It may be harder to get to that fear.
The issue oftentimes is that, I'll speak for myself, I'm a withdrawer. It's easier for me to withdraw. I also have a lifetime's worth of practice withdrawing.
And it's comforting, right? That
Yes.
reduces your pressure.
Yep,
more.
it reduces the stress, anxiety of that situation. So it's easy for me to choose to withdraw. But what I need to do, what is best for our relationship, is for me to show up even more.
Yeah.
So I have to get out of my comfort zone, and I have to recognize what's going
Go
on,
that
step out
way.
of that, and actually do the opposite of my natural tendency, which is to back up a little bit. So it's not always easy, especially when I feel like I'm in the right and some other person is in the wrong, because I don't
Usually me.
want to show up for that person in that moment, because they are the ones that, in my head, I feel that is doing the harm. But again, that's the story we tell ourselves. When we step back and look at this infinity loop and we realize that it's actually the cycle that we're now dealing with, not the other person, it's the cycle. So if I can wake up to myself and actually step into the situation a little bit, then we can actually start to have a conversation.
Yep.
But until I can do that, she's going to continue to pursue and I'm going to continue to push away. So it's something that we can talk about in more in depth. But oftentimes, if you have a pursue-withdraw relationship, the withdrawer has to actually go, okay, for right now, I will give up my withdrawing. And then that allows the pursuer to soften a little bit, to stop pursuing as much.
That's right.
But until the withdrawer decides to wake up or to make a decision to prioritize what's going on, then we may stay in this loop. It's a frustrating thing for a withdrawer, because sometimes I would like to sit in my corner and cross my arms and pout and say that I'm right and the other person is wrong, but that's not going to actually get us to a place of reconciliation and reconnection.
And then I would say for the pursuers out there that what you've got to do, instead of as soon as you feel that feeling inside, go directly to the other person and sort of start making demands or asking questions or, talking about what went wrong, to take a second, take some breaths, and to go into yourself and see if you can ask yourself, what's the story that you're telling yourself right now? And what are the fears inside? And that will give you some space and help you. One of the things that we do, and this is unique to us, I'm not saying you need to do this is something that we've found out that really works, is if I can in a gentle way say, I think something's going on, is it okay if we talk about this? And sort of invite Chris, instead of starting out what's wrong? Yeah, something's wrong. We need help. Oh, sound the alarms, which is what I want to do initially. If instead I can take some breaths and know we're good. We're connected, we're safe. So if something is happening, it's gonna be okay. I can just sort of be curious about this, and I can choose to sort of soften myself a little bit and to come in with a different sort of energy.
Yeah.
I can be a bit intense. I don't know if you can tell that already. And so I don't always want to bring the fullness of my intensity at Chris.
Sure.
I really want to let him into my intensity. There's nothing wrong with intensity. It's just, I want to be able to do this in a way that doesn't blame or criticize.
Yeah. Nandita is saying over on Instagram today that sometimes she doubts that one can get out of the cycle unless there is a sense of detachment. We work towards understand, but when we stand and talk about it, may stop because of programming. And I would say that that kind of goes back to something that we were mentioning yesterday, at least from my perspective, hearing what you've said. Hopefully I'm reading it correctly just on the fly. Is that yesterday we were talking about the fact that if we don't feel safe in that moment, then we're going to continue to distance ourselves from it. But it's sometimes risking and showing up even in the midst of that discomfort that maybe there is movement towards something better. And also that even after 20 years of marriage, we still get into a cycle as well.
Yep.
We did day before yesterday for a bit of the day. And so it's not that once you kind of figure this out cognitively that you will never have the issues pop back up. Because we know it cognitively, and then sometimes even with our best intentions, it still goes awry. So I would just, this is just my interpretation of what you're stating here, but sometimes even with the best, like all the head knowledge, it's still going to go haywire. So if you can think about it from a perspective of like, not I will fix this one day and then I'll never have this problem again, but it's a daily, I'm going to show up in the midst of something that may feel like conflict or disconnection, but we have to continue to choose that again. It's not like take a pill and then it goes away forever. It's going to be something that pops up on and off for the rest of our relationships, for the rest of our lives.
Now, if you're talking about detachment, like it's so funny, like you know how much I love definitions, but detachment from like an attachment science perspective would be more like not being bonded anymore. And I don't actually think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, anticipate it. Okay, so yeah, actually you can in a lot of ways. As soon as you identify your cycle, then you can start to pay attention and recognize it. It's kind of like if I said to you, I just want you to notice red cars when you're on the road today, that you're gonna be able to notice that more than typical. Like it'll be something that draws your attention. So that sort of sense of detachment, if I'm thinking more about like what starts to happen when you can name your pattern, when you can start to talk about your move, and then what's the emotion underneath the move, that you can start talking about your core emotion, your sadness, your loneliness, your fear, your joy, all of those things, that there is this sense of a distance that I can like, together our cycle looks here. So in that sense, I wonder if that's the kind of detachment maybe that you're talking about. Like there's this space that we can both go, I think that's our cycle. Do you think that's our cycle?
Yeah.
And then there's like this distance, and that gives us this space so that then we can make some more choices. Before we did that, we were just caught in it and didn't really know what it was. I was demanding he kind of become a pursuer, and he wanted me to kind of become a withdrawer. If I could just calm down and stop talking about stuff all the time, if I could stop bringing stuff up, if I could chill and relax, we would be fine. We'd have no problems.
Which is often what we hear when a couple first comes to therapy. They essentially are saying, even if they don't say it with words, what they say with the intention of being at therapy is like, okay, I'm here because the other person is messed up. And if
100%,
you can, therapist, if you
100%.
can fix the other person, then we would be good. And what our job is as therapists is to recognize that both of us have issues that we need to deal with. And so if you can recognize the issue that you're bringing to the table, then you can work with yourself. And then if the other person can deal with the issue that they're bringing to the table, then they can work on themselves. And then we can step outside of, now we're recognizing what the issues are so that hopefully our relationship can be worked on once we both recognize that we bring something to the table. I fortunately have a partner who is that can recognize it easily. So sometimes I fall asleep to it. And so I oftentimes, the way that you were saying that like, don't you doubt that it can happen, I often doubt that it can happen, even in my own head knowledge of all of this.
If
because
you're a withdrawer, I think it will also feel a lot more like that.
yeah, because
Like,
I kind
it'll
of
be
fall
more
asleep to
confusing.
what's going on. And then it's not until sometimes Terry raises the alarm of like, is everything okay? What's going on? That I even go like, oh, I better check in with myself and think about this. So I have the benefit and the privilege of having a partner who is very keen on recognizing when something is
Like
even
an
amiss
Arctic
a little
fox. Let's go. Well, thank you. That
Yeah.
really means a lot to me. And I would say not all withdrawers do this, but one form of withdrawing is sort of falling asleep, disengagement with your own inner experience.
And that's me.
Yeah, so that might not resonate with you even if
Sure.
you're a withdrawer,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad that you said that, because it can be so subtle. That withdrawing
Yeah.
isn't always like a slamming of the door and an outright rejection of your reach towards a withdrawer. Like withdrawers are just trying to, without the help of any other nervous system, trying to regulate themselves, remember? And so what happens is you feel like you have a neutral impact if you're a withdrawer, that no one would know unless you let them know. And that's just not true with your partner. That because of, let's just go back to our electromagnetic field, there's an energetic difference when you're connected or when you're disconnected. And that we actually do have science over.
Yeah.
Right? We could put you in an fMRI machine and we could see how securely attached you are based on what happens in your brain. So for me, there are parts of my brain that light up when I can feel something happening inside him. And I know that has to be so annoying as a withdrawer,
Well,
when like
yeah.
part of your safety is in not drawing attention to yourself and being able to fly under the radar, and then you end up in a relationship with someone who's looking at you and what you do. And if you really are a pursuer in your anxiety, you're going to lose touch with what's happening in you, and you're going to be able to know what's happening in your partner. So pulling the focus back and getting more curious about yourself actually takes the pressure off of your withdrawing partner, and it gives them enough space to come forward, to be curious about their own selves.
Yeah, regulate and protect.
I
yes.
love that.
Very nice.
Regulate and protect. That's exactly it. We have to do that.
Yeah.
So if you're caught in the cycle, that's not a bad thing. Every single human being has one. Our job is just to get curious about which kind of cycle we find ourselves in and what role it is that we play. How are you protecting yourself?
And I would say this one last thing, and I know that we need to go soon.
Glad it was a short one, which is what we talked about doing today.
Well, we had a lot to talk about, and it's good. But I'm saying that, like, what was I wanting, the point that I was trying to make? Oh,
Did you?
it's in these moments where, like, I feel good. I feel like I'm at a place where I can be open and talk about these relationships, and that you and I are in a safe place. Mm-hmm. And so to actually have these conversations now where we feel okay is it feels easier to let this information in. If we were at a place of disconnection and we were talking about the same stuff, I would have this, even if it's subconscious, I would have this block of like, don't talk to me about this stuff right now. I don't need to hear it. And so the fact that
Like, it hurts my feelings even seeing
so
it.
us having this conversation now as a community, I hope that you're at a place where if you're open, if you're in a good mood, if it's just like green lights, you can just ride down the road and things are not stopping you. This is a better place to talk about it theoretically, because we don't have the emotional blocks that come up when we are in disconnection with our significant other, or with our children, or with our parents, or with our friends, or with our bosses, or our employees, or whatever that may be.
Cycling will make you have a bad day at work. It'll make you less able to take in information if you're a student.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah, we've all felt it, where we have something that starts as a small thing, and then it grows a little bit bigger, and then we move on to even another relationship. Like, we start out arguing a little bit at home, and then we go to work, and then we have a bad day at work, and that builds to where when we get back home, now not only do we argue, and I had a bad day at work, now we're still not regulated, and so we're going to have an even bigger thing to talk about when we get home. Like, it builds on each other, and it puts itself onto other relationships as well. So it's good to talk about it.
Gave me an idea about something I want to write about. Keep talking. I'm just going to write it down.
So it's good to think about these things and talk about them when we are more regulated, when we feel calmer in our nervous system, whether we are a pursuer or a withdrawer. So hopefully when those moments come of disconnection, or we have an issue, then we can kind of, we have done the work in a more calm area, so that then we move to deeper, more rough waters. We can remember the lessons that we learned in these moments here. So I hope this was helpful today. I hope that we are adding to the experience of your relationships and making them better, richer, deeper, stronger. We love you, and we are so happy that you're here. You guys all helped me today. I started out a little bit grumpy. If you go back and watch the beginning of the show, I felt it. Like, I feel like even I have more color in my face than I did an hour ago.
Turns out it wasn't the lighting.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. You got this. Go rock it today. Thank you.
You're the best.
Thank you all.
Exactly where you are. Go put your feet somewhere, or your hands.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about this garden for James here as well. So,
that sounds so amazing.
Thank you all for joining us. You got this. Go have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. See you in the morning.
Bye, everybody.